Hi, welcome back to another episode of Life Changers, and this is Mike. We are back for our third season, so I'd like to thank everybody who's been listening to us and encouraging us. And sorry we haven't uploaded a lot in the summer. It's just it's been really busy, so we decided to take the summer off, and now we're back to our next season. And then, we'll just continue doing 2 seasons a year after this. So, it's good to be back. It's hard to get the groove. Like, I've been trying to record, I guess, for the last month. It's just really hard to get back in the groove of things when you're just not used to it after like the summer. It's been a while, but a lot has happened. So we're going to talk a lot about ego in this season, and another topic I like to talk about is how, I guess, trying to find, everlasting love, and stuff like that. And it's just a very interesting story. I just wanted to share with you on that. So we'll get to that throughout the season. But I guess one of the main topics is your ego, or as most people know it, the voice in your head. I am not going crazy. I'm just want to talk a little bit about the ego, because I learned a lot about the ego. I guess one of the last things you heard me talking about is how we're going to, how I went to do a 10-day meditation retreat. And I've been to Sideburn and a bunch of other festivals this year and talked to a lot of people and a lot of amazing people out there, and just see how awesome the world is and stuff like that, as long as we don't focus on the doom and gloom, right? Because it's true. When you are projecting outwards is what you're going to get. Sorry, I was just going to pick up my phone to make sure it was on silent, because I don't want to get interrupted when I'm in the flow. And I just interrupted myself, but it is what it is. So I was going to put it on vibrate. Or low ring too. There you go. Sorry about that. But like I say, uncutted, unedited. We take the raw footage, we master the sound to make it sound a little bit cleaner and more consistent in case I back up from the mic and stuff like that. So it's like consistently loud and stuff like that. But I digress. But no, I know for a fact, like for me, it is what it is. But like, if it doesn't work for you, if you don't recognize it, maybe you might start recognizing it or start understanding it more. But I mean, I heard about all this stuff like when I was younger, and I just thought people were nuts. But until I actually started putting it to practice, now it is what it is. Like, I actually see and understand a lot. But it's like, it's like they say, right? You are what you eat, right? But what you put out in the universe, what you focus on, is what you're going to get in return. So if you're focused on all the negativity in the world, and if you're focused on all the crazy stuff that's going on, that's what you're going to see a lot of. It's kind of like the algorithm. I know I mentioned it before, but for all the new listeners, it's kind of like the algorithm for YouTube or TikTok or any of those platforms. The moment you start searching things, it will be like, oh, their attention span on this item was a lot longer than these items, so we're going to show them more of that. And then that becomes your reality. And then your reality becomes negative, if that's what you're putting out and researching all this negative stuff. People say, oh, Mike, if you don't listen to the reality of the world, you're living in a bubble, blah, blah, blah. No. We are all co-creators. We all create our beliefs, our existence. We all create what we want to focus on, what we deem as true, what we deem as fake, and so on and so forth. So it is what it is. But for me, I realize more and more, like, it's crazy. Like, I'm like, it's just crazy. So like, I've listened, like, been watching a lot of like movies and stuff like that, and like reality shows and stuff. But I notice a lot that when I bring into my reality, like the word, like, I don't know, when you put me on the spot, I put myself on the spot. But when I bring into my reality stuff like, how, I create my reality, or the frequency of money and this and that, I start hearing it more and seeing it more, right? And there's even been a thing, I forget what it's called, but it's kind of like when you buy a brand new pair of shoes or you buy a new car or something new. You never really noticed it before, but when you buy one and you start noticing it, then you start seeing it everywhere. You're like, what? Is everybody copying me? Right? Well, that's because you brought it into your reality. And now you're focused on that. And that's what you're going to see because that's what you're searching for. And that's what the universe will be like, hey, look over here. This is what you're looking for. So, yeah, for me, it's puppies and rainbows, or like I like to say, Hakuna Matata. It's such a wonderful phrase because it means no worries. And I just want to be in a worry-free state because I don't know about you, but like if we're just focused on all the worries of life and then start getting crazy and then, but like I try to keep me, like Dr. Joe Dispenza would say, I don't want to be high beta. I want to be normal. I don't want to be always pushing my feet on the gas and trying to accelerate really hard and really fast and then push the brakes at the same time. Because we do that all the time. And I don't always want to be like worried and standby. So yeah, in my reality, it's puppies and rainbows. And I focus on a lot of awesome things. But I digress. Back to the story at hand. So the 10-day meditation retreat, right? I believe it's called Vipassana meditation retreat. And as a lot of you know, my wife has done it twice. And this was my first time going this early in the summer. And pretty much, it's a lot of people I tell, they're like, what, you're nuts, you did that. It's not as bad as it sounds. Okay, I'm going to tell you what happened, and then I'll tell you other things. And then that will bring us into the thing for talking about like understanding my ego or the voice in your head and stuff like that. So, that's what we're going to focus on. So the 10-day retreat. So you pull up to this place, and it's nice. It's like, I don't know, in the woods near the countryside. Like there's no, like even your cell phone, like when I pulled in, it was kind of like glitching out like, oh, hey, we're in the middle of nowhere. Why are we here, Mike? But so like I was getting ready, like I was mentally ready. My wife explained to me a lot, like not a lot, but she explained to me a few things, like just listen, do what they say, and have fun. She's like, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be relaxing for you, right? I was like, oh, okay. I like to relax, right? I literally gave my wife my cell phone, all the information she needed to run the companies, and if there's anything she needed to do, and meetings I had, for, coming up for those 10 days, and if any customers call with emergencies and stuff like that, how to deal with it, right? So I just gave her everything. And then that's it. You go check in, okay? And you're allowed to talk at first. So you check in, you say you're here, and then you're like, okay, yeah. And they tell you where you're going to be sleeping. So I ended up lucking out. My wife says, oh, you're so lucky. Like, it's amazing. You're going to love it. So instead of sleeping in like with a roommate and like in like university type barracks, I guess, or like rooms, right? So there's like 2 per room, and they're all like whole 2 floors of everybody. But they're like, yeah, you're going to get a cabin. I was like, cool. So I got a cabin in the woods. It was awesome. I was excited. And, my wife stayed actually for a little bit. Like, so when I checked in, they were allowed to stay, my wife and kids. And they came and looked at the cabin where I was going to stay. And they're like, cool, And I showed them, this is like where I'm going to eat. And, and stuff like that. Like, we weren't allowed to go into the meditation hall. But, I was like, well, that's where I'm assuming I'm going to meditate and stuff like that. And then my family left, and then I got to hang out. I was talking to some people, and they're like, oh, yeah, this is my second time. A lot of people, it was their first time. It was my first time. And then we get to eat, and then they talk to us a little bit about what they expect. So pretty much it's lights out by 10 o'clock at night. And then you get woken up at like 4 in the morning or 4:30 in the morning. So if you're sleeping in like the main sleeping area, there's like a buzzer that goes off inside. But since I was in the woods, I had to have an alarm clock. So I brought my own alarm clock. And then they take everybody's cell phones away. So you're not allowed on cell phones. You don't get to check emails, no voicemail, no nothing. You're disconnected from the world, okay? Which is awesome. You're disconnected from like everything that's going on in the world. Like you hear nothing, okay? And yeah, if there's an emergency, like there's a phone number people can call me at, or they can call, if I have an emergency, I can call out and stuff, right? But yeah, no phones, no nothing. You're disconnected, and you're not allowed to talk to anybody after supper. So when supper rolls around that day, we're not allowed to talk after that. And you don't talk for 10 days. I hear a fly in the studio. Anyways, I'm not going to get distracted. So you don't talk to nobody for 10 days. So they call it a 10-day retreat. But just a fun fact, you're there for 2 other half days. So it's 10 full days. So the first day is just a half day, right? You check in after supper. It doesn't really count until like the next day is day 1, okay? Then when day 10 hits, which is 11 at that point, then only day 12 in the morning after breakfast, we're allowed to leave. I make it sound so bad. You're not allowed to leave. That's another thing is there's all these areas allowed to walk, but you're not allowed to leave the property. You're not allowed to walk to other areas. So yeah, I was in the guy zone, and we were all talking and stuff, and then supper rolled around, boom, stop talking. And then you're just alone in your head. You got nothing to distract you. We have a lot. I notice we have a lot of distractions. Even talking to my friends or even my wife, sometimes I'm like, what did we do like before our smartphones or our iPhones and stuff? Like we actually hung out and talked and did things. Like it's ridiculous how you realize how much you don't do because we're latched on our devices because we think we're going to miss something. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of good stuff on your devices. You can get a lot of amazing information and do a lot of good with it. But there's also a lot of distracting stuff. And then before you know it becomes a habit. Then it's like an addiction where you if there's nothing to do, you just pull out your phone. And I don't want to be that person. But I am, apparently. I felt naked without my phone. So day 1 starts. So we sleep. I go to bed. I wake up at 4 a.m. I'm like, I'm gun-ho. I'm going to do this. So I woke up at 4 a.m. They ask you to wake up at 4 a.m. And then 4:30 is when you're allowed, I can leave. There's no washrooms in my cabin. It's just literally plywood and wood in the woods. So I have to walk a minute or 2 out of the woods to go to one of the main buildings, and there's washrooms and stuff that I could use. So in the middle of the night, I'm not leaving. Because I'm not walking out there in the middle of the night. Who knows what's in the woods? So, and there's only 6 cabins in the woods. So there's only 6 of us out there. And, yeah. I'm just thinking of everything. It's just so funny, some of the stuff. But anyways. So it's, the official morning of day one. Sorry. So my alarm goes off because they asked you to set your alarm for at least 4 o'clock, wake up, do your routine, then 4:30 until 5:30, try to just meditate. And all they want you to do is so they teach you, I guess, the night before day 1, so day -1 or day 0, they teach you that you just focus on your breathing. Just breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. That's all they tell you to do. That's it. So I'm all gun-ho. I woke up, 4:30, 4:15, 4:30. I'm sitting on this chair. I'm close my eyes. And I'm just focus on your breathing. So fun fact, when you're focused on your breathing, you're not focused on anything else. So if you focus on breathing, you're not focused on anything else. So it's amazing. So you just start, focusing on your breath. And if you start getting your mind starts to wander, hey, I wonder what's going on my phone. Oh, I don't have my phone. Oh, what's going here? Then just bring it back to breathe in, breathe out. Okay? So I did that no problem. And then at about, 5:30, it's breakfast time. And, open my eyes. And then I see this thing on one of the screen windows. This black blob, I guess, because it was like sunny, but not too sunny yet. And I was like, oh, whatever that is, like probably just like a leaf or something, right? And then I was like, cool. So then I was like, breakfast time. So I go see breakfast. And then you start seeing people walking around. So I start walking around and I'll go to breakfast. And it's so quiet. All you hear is dishes clinking, cling, ding, ding, ding. People eating. Nom, 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 nom. But, and they tell you not to make eye contact. You know how like sometimes you make eye contact with people like, uh-huh. You like nod your head like, yes, I understand. And like they tell you not to do anything like that. Like you're supposed to be there for you. You're in your own space. You're there to help yourself. I didn't know why yet. What am I helping myself with? I'm happy. I'm good. I'm good. Hakuna Matata. Right? And then, my mind starts to wander with all this like funny thoughts, and I'm just like, okay, and there's books that I've listened to on Audible by Dr. Joe Dispenza, and another one by Michael A. Singer. And Michael A. Singer has one that talks about the voice in your head, I believe. Michael A. Singer. Yeah, he kind of talks about it a bit, and Dr. Joe Dispenza as well. But anyways, and they talk about your ego or the voice in your head. Yeah, it's Michael A. Singer. Yeah. Okay. He has a book called The Untethered Soul that talks about it. It's really good. You should look it up. Michael A. Singer, Untethered Soul. And he also has one called The Surrender Experiment, which is another one I recommend. But, yeah. So he talks about it a bit, and he wrote a whole book about it, about his experience, about the voice in your head, and how he's just trying to get it to shut up. Just to stop, because it always seems to be negative, right? And yeah, my mind starts doing that, right? Like, oh, what if you're not doing it right? Why, what is this? And why is this happening? And oh, like for breakfast, like it's just oatmeal and fruit. I don't really drink coffee, but I like there's juice and milk for the coffee, so I drink milk and water. Like you carry a water bottle, so you drink a lot of water, because when you're bored, you just drink water. But anyways, so, and like we have our assigned seats, by the way. We have an assigned seat for where we eat, and we assign seat in the meditation hall where you sit, meditate. And there is people you can talk to where you're allowed to like talk really quiet and say like, hey, I need help with this, or I'm having a problem with this. And every day after the meditation sessions, you can talk to the person that's there in charge, and like tell them like, I feel this or I don't feel that, and this is what I'm working on. So like you'll have to talk a little bit, but you don't have to talk to each other, and they recommend you don't talk. And no nodding, no acknowledging other people's existence, because we're all there for ourselves. So you don't want to, distract people. And so after breakfast, during breakfast, I was like, oh, okay, this is like, I'm doing it. Like, I'm all like, I got this. Day one's easy. It's going to be before you know it. I'm counting down the minutes before I got to see my amazing, beautiful wife come pick me up, and my kids, and be like, I did it. So I start, like, my mind starts wandering about like, oh, all the accomplishments, it's going to be awesome. You're doing good. This is easy, right? And, at first my mind's pretty good. It's not negative. And then after breakfast, I believe it was by 6:30, and then you have a little bit of free time until 7:30, where you can like shower and stuff like that, shave, do whatever you need to do. And then by 7:30, boom, in the meditation hall. And we're in the meditation hall for 2 hours each time we go. We go 3 times a day. And the last time was for 3 hours, a lot longer. And then like they tell you, like you'll hear from the person that tells you like, okay, tells you some stories. Like you watch it, like it's pretty fun. Anyways, I'll get to it. So you go in, and then that's it. You're told to focus on your breathing again. And you do that for like 3 days. 3 days where you just focus on the breathing. So I go, and then you try to make sure your mind doesn't wander. In my case, I try to make sure my mind doesn't wander, and that I don't fall asleep and snore. How embarrassing would that be, that I'm just sitting there snoring away and everybody's trying to meditate and they just smack me. But after the first morning meditation, I talked to the guy. I was like, sitting on the floor in the lotus position where it's like crisscross applesauce, you cross your legs, and you sit there. I said, it's kind of hard for me. Like I start getting pain in my legs and in my back and stuff like that. And so he's like, well, you could just, don't worry about it. That's part of the process. Like you got to get through the pain. And I was like, well, if it's possible to have a chair. He goes, well, there's these wooden blocks you can take and kind of like sit on it and then you put your legs under. So it's kind of like you're kneeling on the floor, but yet you're sitting. So like he goes, that might help you. I was like, okay, yeah, I'll try that. So then you get to leave, and then for like an hour or so. Then after that, it's lunchtime, and then you got a little bit of free time. Then you go back into the hall for another 2 hours, and then I was like, okay, I got this. So get the piece of wood. I'm sitting on it, and I'm doing it. I'm like, yeah, my mind starts to wander a bit, like. And now my mind's getting grumpy. It's like, hey, they won't give you a chair. They told you the pain's normal. Like, what's going on, man? Like, you're getting all this pain and stuff, and then they don't want to give you a chair. That's not nice of them. I'm like, yeah. My mind's like, hey, what if this is just like, it's not really about the meditation, that they're watching us to see how much pain they could put on us. I'm just like, my mind's like, yeah, what about? And I'm like, what the hell's going on? Just shut up, calm down, you know? And my mind was like, oh, hey, you know, there goes the ego. Just, okay, yeah, we're doing what we're told, you know? Like, hey, I'm not just following. I'm here for myself. I'm like, I'm just going to do this because it tells you to give it a shot. Like, you're here for yourself. You're here to help yourself. And, I didn't know why at first. By day 3, I realized why. And then, you know, then after that, it's supper, and then we get to go back and do the 3 hours. And they play a video. Like, you hear a guy's voice. Like, it's all like audio. Like, you hear a guy's voice, and he tells you, like, okay, this is what we're focusing on. And I know, just breathing. I'm breathing. And then he says, like, you could feel the breath and just focus. And Dr. Joe Dispenza says this all the time, that when you are actually closed your mind and not thinking of anything, and you're nothing, and you're just like, oh man, like, just turn everything off, how that's the best way for your body to heal itself. How it's kind of like rebooting a computer. If you leave your computer on all the time, how it starts getting sluggish and laggish, and things aren't working properly and stuff like that. Well, this way, if we meditate, it's like rebooting our computer system. It's like turning it off, turning it back on, then everything could just like relax, and you feel so much better after. And this is what it's all about. And this is what I was trying to do, right? That's what I assumed the meditation was about. Just to like, just relax, be, actually get there and be nothing. And it's cool. Like, and my mind has little dialogues going on. It's like looking at other people sometimes. Like, I open my eyes. I'm just like, oh man, like how long? And when you listen to the audio of the guy that tells you, okay, this is what we're doing. And sometimes he says, like, at the end of so you meditate for 2 hours, and after that we take a little 5-10 minute break, then you come back in, then they let us watch like an hour or so of a video of the guy teaching us the meditation and talking to us. And then we do a little meditation, then for another half an hour, then we're done. So we're there for a while. And at one point he's saying, like, how you're sitting there going, I wonder if it's almost over. I wonder, like, and his mind starts to go nuts, right? Like, hurry up, and my leg's hurting, or this is hurting. Oh, hurry up. And then you try to like open your eyes and you look at one of the clocks somewhere in the building, in the room, right? And then you see it's only been 5 minutes. You're like, I felt like an hour. And I'm like, yeah, like, it's relatable. I'm like, this is crazy. My mind's freaking out because it's used to all the stimulation we have, right? We have the phones. I can watch anything on TV in an instant, and I could Google anything and see anything I want. But now I got nothing. It's just me alone. There's other people there, but you feel so alone. And it's not a bad thing, okay? I learned a lot. So day 1's over, day 2 rolls around. And so I go to bed, like we leave at 9:30. We have half an hour, and then it's lights out. And since I'm in the cabin, I got my own light switch, but I just go in there and turn it off. And then I went to bed. I woke up, and day 2, I woke up for about 4:45, a little bit later. I went and sat down to started sitting there. My mind's just going like, oh, what are you doing here? What do you think you're going to become like some Buddhist monk or something? Are you going to meditate and waste your life? Like, as they say, YOLO, you only live once, right? Like, live your life to the fullest, and now you're just wasting this your second day, and you're just wasting it. And I'm like, okay, relax. Just breathe in, breathe out, breathe in. And then as it started getting brighter again, I looked at the window and I see on the screen, because like the curtain was open a bit. I see this thing, like this figure, like a little thing. I don't know, I don't know, maybe like 3-4 inches long, stuff like that, whatever. And then I was like, before I leave like it started getting brighter and brighter. So then I turned on the light. I took my flashlight. I looked at the thing as it got brighter before breakfast, and I saw what it was. It was a big spider. It was huge. I forget that it was a wolf spider, a female wolf spider. So if you Google that on your phone, you see how big they can get. Just staring at me, like I could see its eyes. I'm like, oh my God. So this is day 2. So I'm like, hey, Mr. Spider, Mrs. Spider, nice to meet you. Please. And when I tell you I'm in the cabin in the woods, it's not like some really nice, well-made cabin. It's literally plywood. There's gaps. I got mosquito netting over my bed because there's mosquitoes can get in, bugs can get in, stuff like that. Like I could see outside if I look at my door. There's like almost an inch gap, and there's all these gaps everywhere. So like bugs can come in and just roam free in there. Mice, everything. So I'm like, can you just stay outside and not come in and eat me? I know it sounds nuts, but the spider was big, and I was a little concerned. Now, in the back of my mind, all I'm picturing is the spider just, as I'm sitting there meditating, going to come in and crawl my leg and, attack me or whatever. And I'm like, oh, man. Like, I'm not as scared of spiders or bugs or anything. But I was terrified of the look of this one. If I could look at it and see its eyes looking at me, contemplating life, I mean, yeah, look it up if you want to get squeamish. So then, I go to breakfast, and then as we go to the meditation hall after breakfast, the guy comes and says, hey, how's the meditations going? Like the one guy who's like in charge of helping us if we need anything. And I was like, oh, it's going good. But there's a spider in my on my screen in my room. It's outside, but it can just crawl right in. And he's just like, oh, making fun of me. Eh? You're scared of a spider, huh? And I'm like, yeah, okay. And he's like, well, I got you a chair if you wanted it. So he set up a chair for me in the back of the hall. So like because he had assigned seating, right? So he goes, here's where you can sit, or you can sit on the mat or that brick thing. I'll let you decide. I just want you to be comfortable for the meditation, because he looked a little, like I would wake, stretch and move around a lot, trying to, not have a sore back or anything. And I know it's all mind over matter. I know everybody's yelling at the not the mics. I'm yelling at the mic, but yelling, going, "Hey, it's mind over matter. You could just will it away, right? Right, Mike? You could just will it away." But yes, it's true. You can, but it's harder than it sounds. And it took me many years to get to the point where I'm at, and I'm still learning. And this is my journey. This is why I'm doing the podcast. It's my journey while I'm learning how to harness the universal powers, I guess you would say, and become supernatural and get what I want, create what I want. But anyways, so I was like, that's cool. So then, I sat on the floor for a bit. Then when I couldn't, I sat up on the chair, and I was like, oh, this is more relaxing. And then I could just sit there and meditate. And then once again, my ego, my mind, the voice in my head starts going on and on. Hey, you're eating the same thing today. You had the same, it's always the same food for breakfast. It's like they don't want you to have any, and there's a lot. So another fun fact, it's all vegan food. So there's no meat, no nothing. It's all vegan. And yeah, there's milk and there's cheese. So it's not, I guess it's vegetarian. No, it's vegetarian. Sorry, it's all vegetarian. So like there's tofu and stuff like that. But there is meat. There's no meat. There's cheese and milk on some of the. In the morning, you got milk, and there's some cheese in the afternoon to put on your salads. So yeah, it's really healthy food. Trust me, and it's awesome. Like, I love healthy food. I know I don't look like it, but it's so hard to make. Anyways, and then I was like, yeah, this is cool. And then my mind's going, oh, hey, like, and it was a hard day. Like, my mind is just like I don't know, like the ego just like punching me down, like, oh, you can't do this. Like, I wonder what's happening at home, and no one's able to call you if there's an emergency, right? And I'm like, what if there's all this huge contract you're working on and then your wife screws it up and then it falls through and my mind's like, and you gotta understand, like, I know it's just, if you ever experienced it, you'll understand, but when your mind starts going crazy, and I'm not crazy, like, I mean, like, I'm talking to myself in my head, right? But like where your mind just starts saying all these things to you, like, what is this? Because, and I'm like trying to focus on breathing. I'm like, hey, stop talking to me. I'm focusing on breathing. Stop. And your mind just continues. And then if you actually entertain that thought, you know how like thoughts come flying through your brain, and then if you actually entertain it, it kind of like whoop whoop and whoop, whoop, brings it closer to you, and then and then your mind and your body starts reacting. If you start accepting it, it's like, oh yes, that is happening right now, right? And stuff like that. So it was getting like, okay, my mind's going a little more. My ego, right, is just trying to like, hey, you can't do this, punch me down, and trying to get me out of there because it wants to get back to its routine of doing whatever it does normally, right? And it's hard. It's really hard to change. So I was like, no, I'm going to do this. So then after that one, I was like, wow, that was hard, after the morning one. And then we get to go and, stretch, relax, and then meditate by yourself, as they say. And then you go eat for lunch. And, as I see people, like I'm watching people, I'm a people watcher. So I'm watching people, and some people are like walking around and like the grounds, there's a trail actually you can walk and go over a bridge and then you walk through the woods. You can walk around the woods. But there's a lot of mosquitoes because it's summertime. Mosquitoes love me. So I was like, I don't want to go walk around in the woods. So I'm just trying to stay like out of the woods as much as possible. And stuff like that. And then I was like, so just my phone's going off. There you go. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I was just like watching people walking around, some people just like drinking and like water and stuff, and just like I'm trying to find a place in the sun just to sit and relax, and everybody's just trying to stay in their own world. No one's really talking to each other, stuff like that. And and then lunch rolls around, and some people are there like 10 minutes before lunch. The cafeteria opens, and they're just sitting there waiting. And then you get to go in. As soon as it opens, get food, eat, leave. And like, it lasts for like an hour or so, but if you eat fast, and then you can start wandering around again. And everybody's just trying to be busy. And it's like, some people are doing better than others. I see some people just walking around. There's like a little donut like in front of the building where we eat breakfast. It's just like a driveway. It's like a circle. And people are just pacing around that circle. And then we go meditate. Then we go back for the after lunch meditation. And then I'm just sitting there. And then, I'm like, focus on breathing, right? So I'm like breathing in. And I don't know if I told you this before, but when I was younger, I broke my nose. So I have a hard time breathing through my nose. So I'm what you call a mouth breather. I breathe through my mouth. So I have to focus to breathe through my nose. And sometimes I feel like I don't get enough air. So then I open my breathe through my mouth. So I was trying to breathe through my nose, right? In and then out and in and out, right? Just focusing on the breathing. Then my mind starts creeping in again. It's like, hey, what you doing, Mike? You're sitting here still? You're doing nothing? Like... And then my mind is just going on about like, hey, you wouldn't know if your wife was driving the vehicle and then blew a tire and crashed, and now they're all in the hospital, and there's no way for anybody to reach you because like your wife's unconscious, and it's just my mind's just going nuts like this, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, am I crazy? Is that what I'm realizing here? Is I'm nuts? And this is only like day 2. And then it's just like, okay, and then I just ignore it. But, if you focus on something, your body can make it real. Like Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about a few different trials that they've done where they get people to play piano, but just play a certain song, right? And they get the control that does nothing. And they get people to close their eyes and visualize themselves learning the song and playing the piano. And the control, nothing happened in their brain. The people that played the piano, a certain part of their brain started like glowing, as they say, right? They're like, oh, you're learning, right? And the people that just visualized it had the exact same thing as the people that actually did it. Like it was creating the same muscle memory in their mind and everything, and the same place in their brain, to the point where they probably could sit them in front of a piano and they could be able to play it. So like your mind, doesn't know the difference of what's real or not. Just like I explained to you, where a lot of people can resonate with this, like if something bad happened to you, right? And then you talk about it, even if it happened 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and you start talking about it, how you start feeling the exact same anxiety or the same thing and you start getting emotional and stuff like that, right? Because every time you tell that story, your body's reacting to it as if it's happening again. Sorry. And happening again and again and again. Every time you tell that story, like your hands will get clammy. If you talk about a car accident, your hands get clammy and you start shaking and you're like, okay, I can talk about it, right? Or you might even break down and cry if it's something like, something sad that you're talking about. And that's the society we live in, is where like we focus on things like dramatic or things like that, and we just hold on to it. And nobody really lives in the now. We all live in the past. Like it seems like we live in the past, and then we plan for the future, but we never reach the future. We just live in the past and we focus on the past. So what's going to happen? It's the exact same thing. You're just going to have a loop. And so yeah, a little side note. But yeah, so when you're telling that story and you're talking about it, just like me when I'm talking about right now, my experience at this 10-day meditation retreat, it's bringing back emotions, and my mind and my body starts acting like, oh man, I'm still here, I'm still meditating, right? Like, and it starts reacting as if it's happening, right? So no difference if you start focusing on those thoughts in your mind of like, oh, maybe something bad might have happened, right? Like, and my wife told me, no news is good news. So if I don't hear from them, it's good. If ever somebody has to come in and say, hey, Mike, you got to come with us because we need to talk, then that means something bad has happened, right? Somebody called and something bad, right? So no news is good news. So I just tell myself that no news is good news. No news is good news. And, focus on breathing again. And then as my body starts like, less sweaty and clammy and then like worried about like all this crazy stuff happening, and just, bring it back to reality, just focus on the breathing. And then, and after the meditation's over, they say, come and talk to us if you want, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm good. So it's just been crazy. And then, continue the day, and we go back for the after supper meditation, which is the long one. Like you do 2 hours, and then you watch a video, and then another hour. So it's like almost 3.5, 4 hours. And just, I don't know, it became like real. Where I started entertaining those thoughts, and I started getting worried. Like, what if these things are happening? What if, somebody's robbing my house and holding my family captive? Or what if my wife died and my kids are alone and my oldest daughter can't reach me because, well, they have my cell phone and she doesn't know who to call? And, I'm just, all these thoughts, right? Like, it's weird how your ego just throws that at you. And it always seems to be like negative thoughts. I don't understand that. Why it does that. And I know I got to reread that book, and it kind of like, it's not a bad thing, okay? But it feels bad because you got to understand. I'm a visual thinker. So if somebody tells me a story or a joke, I don't just hear it. I actually like play it in my mind. Like it's actually playing in my mind. Like I'm a visual thinker, as I say, so visual talker. So like if you ask me directions, I'll give you directions how to get somewhere, and I'll see it in my mind and map it out as I'm doing it, right? And it's just, I don't know, it's like I got photographic memory. Some people say it'd be great for counting cards. yeah, I got a good memory, and when I'm a visual thinker, so like not only like is it just my ego saying these things, if I entertain it, it becomes almost like a movie or something like playing in my head. Like the stage is set in my head, right? And I'm in my head, and then if I'm entertaining that negativity, it starts playing it, and I'm just start. Oh man, it's just so hard. I don't know if I sound crazy or anything, but like, try it. And my ego and it was getting hard, and I'm even like started worrying that like maybe I'm going crazy. I'm like, no, just push it away. No news is good news. No news is good news. Because I haven't, like I travel a lot. I'm gone a lot, but I'm able to call or text or check in on my family, check in on my wife, right? I'm just, always, I don't know, like if it's just me or if I'm just subconsciously a negative thinker or if the ego is like that for everybody. But from my experience in talking with people and reading these books and stuff where, no, it's happening to a lot of people. Like you got to program your ego and partner with it. Like this is where the story is going, but I just got to lead up to the story. But yeah, it was the second day was hard after supper. I didn't, like you couldn't tell, but I was starting to get like almost sad. And now I'm just like thinking like, I'm going to tap out. I know it's only been 2.5 days. I'm going to tap out. And then right away I start thinking like, oh, is your wife going to think she's going to be disappointed in you? And it's like, don't tap out. Like the ego's going opposite now, trying to keep me there. It's kind of weird. And then I was like, cool. Like, and then, I would think like, oh, if you stay and do the 10 days, when your wife shows up, she'll run into your arms, give you a big hug and a kiss, and you could twirl her around, and all your kids would be like, Daddy, you're my hero, stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, I could do this, right? And then I go back to my room, look at the spider. I'm like, please don't come in here. Don't eat me. And I kind of like close the curtain. I'm like, good night, Mr. Spider. And I go into my bed, and then my mind starts going crazy again. And I'm just getting sad. I like, and at first I was like, I'm doing this to impress my wife because she's done this twice. I'm doing it to impress her, right? Well, day 3 rolled around, and that morning, I just stayed in bed until you could hear the ding for breakfast. Because if you don't eat breakfast, man, there's no snack time, there's no nuggets. And then you go, and now you don't actually get supper anymore. Supper is more just like a snack. Like fruit now and a drink. That's it. So you only eat really breakfast and lunch, and then you kind of get a snack. But if you've done this before, you don't even get the snack. Because after supper, you just get like a coffee. That's it. So I was one of the lucky ones that I get to have a snack. Have a banana and an apple. Drink my milk or water. Yeah. So I didn't feel like meditating. And I looked at the spider. Started having like, hey, Mr. Spider. Thanks for not coming in and biting my face off. Just imagine if you wake up and see that crawling on your blankets, man. It's big. Look it up. Google it right now. Wolf spider, female wolf spider. Those are bigger. I'm not even exaggerating it. If I had my phone, I would have took a picture and posted it on my social media page, and you guys would be like, oh my God, that is big. Yes, it was a big, creepy spider. I'm not exaggerating. And then I hear a knock on my door, just before breakfast, actually. And I open the door, and the guy was there like, hey, just checking in. How's it going? I'm like, oh, it's going all right. I'm meditating, blah, blah. He's like, how about your spider situation? So I showed him. I pulled the curtain over and showed him the spider, and he was like, whoa. That's a big spider. And I was like, yep. That is a big spider. And he's like, oh, because at this point, I'm like, I don't want to be out here no more. My mind is just going nuts. I want to be inside with everybody else, have my own bathroom, be able to shower, because I'm used to showering every day. Anyway, so I was like, yeah, it's going okay. He's like, it gets hard, but like, it's worth it. Trust me, it's worth it. And then I was like, cool. And then that was it. So I went for breakfast, go to the morning meditation, and my ego and mind just start going crazy again and thinking of all this craziness. And I'm trying not to let it affect me, but it's hard because you always think like, what if my ego's right? What if there is something crazy happening right now? What if this? What if that? And then I'm like, maybe there's a little bit of truth in what my ego is trying to tell me. And it was hard. I was literally felt like a zombie for day 3. And I'm just going to stay around day 3 and talk to you a little bit about some experiences. And then we'll end it. And then we'll talk about day 4 and 5 on the next podcast, the next episode. But I was just going through the motions. I didn't care for breakfast. I remember I think I skipped breakfast on day 3. Just zombie. And on day 0, there's this one guy, and we're all talking, and this one guy was like, I've done this twice, and all like, this is my second time, this is awesome, blah, blah. Another guy shows up, and he almost looks like a guy from a famous movie, like in a movie called Can't Hardly Wait. He looks like somebody famous, but I don't know. And then one guy turns around and looks at him and goes, "Oh, how many times have you done this?" He goes, "I don't know." He goes, how long have you been doing this? As long as I can remember. He goes, "I do this all the time." Like, and the guy was already bare feet and just looked, like, I guess he belonged to like a monk and stuff like that. So I call him, what's that word? Man, NPC. Because like every time I see him, he's just going from one place, doing like just no motion, no nothing. Like he must have done this 100 times. I don't know, but he just doesn't even remember. My ego started telling me like, hey man, if you do this whole 10-day thing, you might end up like him, and you might lose your mind and go crazy, and then you're gonna sit here and you're gonna be like, and you won't even know what day it is, what year it is, and maybe he's trapped in here, and like maybe we should ask him to blink if he needs help. And I'm like, whoa, calm down. Like this is nuts. And like throughout the rest of my journey, like you might hear me referring to Mr. NPC, but yeah. Mr. NPC, man, he was always there meditating. He was always on time, just doing the motions, like, and yeah, I just started picturing him like, maybe it's just an NPC. He's programmed to be here, doesn't know anything. But, yeah, he was Mr. NPC. I miss you, Mr. NPC. I wonder if he's still there. If he just lives there. But, yeah, so in a nutshell, I started realizing, like, after, those books with Michael A. Singer and Dr. Joe Dispenza, how, like, the ego, it's a real struggle to keep it quiet. And how it starts to go crazy. And in the book for the Surrender Experiment, Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer, he talks about how he tried to, like, shut it up and try to, like, lock it away and tell, don't talk, don't do this, don't do that, right? And how, spoiler alert, how he starts realizing throughout the book that that's not the way to do it. That your ego is actually your ally. But it's just been programmed, it seems, to, at least in my case, to be Mr. Negative, Mr., keep me in check, right? If I'm like, oh, puppies and rainbows, and my brain's like, hey, check, reality check, nothing's puppies and rainbows. But it really can be. You hear it all the time, how when you get rich and, your whole life you're trying to get rich, and then when you reach the richness and how money just flows and blah, 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 right? And you hear all these different people talk like that, how, like, easy it is to just get more wealth when you have wealth, and so on and so forth, right? And how it just keeps on attracting, because now they're not worried about it. And like you hear some of my talks, some of my episodes, that like if you're chasing something, well, if I'm chasing you, you're going to run away. So stop chasing, and then things will just come your way and happen. But this 10-day retreat, so far by day 3, I'm realizing it's a lot harder than I expected. And at this point, by near the end of day 3, I'm thinking like, I'm going nuts. So I go to talk to the one guy. I'm like, hey, I got to check in. He's like, okay. And I'm like, am I going crazy? He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, my mind's going nuts. He goes, yeah, that's the ego. That's why you're here. He goes, before I became, the one, like one of the leading persons for the meditations, I was just a student like you, and I've done it a few times. And he goes, I wanted to leave. It was hard. He goes, I made it to like day 8. I'm still ready to like leave, right? And you're only day 3. He goes, you're advancing faster, and this is harder than most people their first time. Like it's like you're, already connected to yourself or to the universe or whatever, right? I said, yeah. I read a lot and I study a lot and I practice different meditation techniques, and this is a new one. And my wife really recommended it, and goes, yeah. So the whole point of this meditation, which is derived from the Buddha meditation, is to overcome and to connect to your ego, where it's not controlling you, where it's your partnership or whatever, right? And I'm like, well, why does it go so crazy? And he's like, look, he goes, don't worry, you're not crazy. If I thought you were crazy, I'll kick you out of the study. I'm like, study? No, he didn't say study, but kick you out of the program. And I was like, okay. He goes, no, you're doing good. Like after the 10 days, you'll be a whole new person. Like, you got this. Don't worry, man. And I'm like, okay, I got this, right? And he was like, everything that your mind's telling you is just nothing. Don't worry about it. Like, it's just screaming because it wants like attention, or wants you to be busier, because we're normally really busy people in this world, right? We always got something to go. I mean, on my desk right here, I got my MacBook, my iPad, my phone. I got all these devices here, right? And some of them are going off. I don't know if you heard of them, but people are texting me, people are trying to call me, but it is what it is. But yeah, I realized that day 3, and I still had 7 more days to go, was going to be hard. And I figured if I can make it to day 5, and the end of day 5, day 6 will be so much easier, right? And I'm just giving myself these day-by-day goals, and there's one point on day 3 where I had to get up and leave, and I couldn't control myself. And I cried. Like, I just couldn't control. I was crying. My mind was just releasing and crying and crying and crying. And this was before I talked to the guy. And it was confusing. Because growing up, you're really told not to cry, right? As a guy, growing up in the 90s and 80s and stuff like that. And the early zeros, you're supposed to be tough. You're not supposed to cry, and sometimes if I got hurt and I cry, or if I just cry for nothing because somebody hurt my feelings, my other brother, or my brother or my dad or whatever would be like, hey, you want a reason to cry? I'll give you a reason to cry. Stop crying for nothing. Bottle it, man up, right? And that's what I was told a lot of my life. So I didn't cry much as an adult. I don't cry, and I just couldn't help it. It just released. And apparently it's a good thing to release instead of having it all balled up. So I just cried and cried and cried for a bit. And then that night, after I talked to the guy, I went to my room, and that night was hard. Anything I heard outside was like, oh, something's going to come and, get me, or that spider's going to come and get me, or I'm going to wake up and there's going to be a mouse gnawing on my feet, or just, I really didn't want to be there. I'm like, I got to run. I got to get out of here. I got to run. But, I just, willpower, and I'm just going to stay and ignore and happy thoughts, try to think of happy thoughts and stuff like that. Yeah. This, when I tell the story to my friends and stuff, I try to make it sound funny and jokey and stuff, but it's hard. It was hard. And this is only day 3. So at this point, I'm learning that, which is a good thing, that I'm learning faster. And the whole point of this meditation is to release all that negative energy, just throw it out and just let back in positivity and the positive energy, and just be, all you can be. And that's what I want to be, is just Mr. Happy, Mr. Positive. I'm always positive, when I talk to people and, look at the bright side, somebody hit my truck. Well, I, get a better, my truck would get fixed, stuff like that, right? And then your ego will be like, well, it's going to take them so long. You got to fight with insurance and blah, 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 blah. Your premium is going to go up and all this stuff, right? And then it's got to be like, okay, release that and just be happy. Yeah, it was an interesting time. So that's day 3. So in the next episode, I'm going to talk a little bit more about day 4 and 5, and then we'll take it from there for the episodes, and then we'll, see how it goes and talk about different things I'm learning. But this summer, I did learn a lot of amazing stuff and met a lot of amazing people, and I hope to bring more people on the episodes to interview and talk with people, just so you can hear their stories and their journeys throughout life. And this is what the whole podcast is about. It's about you. It's about bringing everybody as a collective, like just happy, joy, and just positivity, because it is all about you. You are in control of your life. We're always told we're not, but you are in control. You are the power to choose what's going on in your life, if you want positivity or negativity. If you're a negative person, a lot of negative stuff are going to happen to you. Just like if I entertained all those crazy thoughts up to this point, how I'd be so sad and depressed. And I was, getting sad. But it's up to you if you're going to let that happen, or if you're going to see the positivity and look for the good things in life and stuff like that. And just live your best life. Live in the moment is what we're all achieving. And this is what I'm trying to achieve. And I'm talking about my journey as I get there. And, I'd like to hear some of your journeys. But I am literally just trying to live in the moment and to live my best life. And I hope, people that are listening to the podcast can enjoy it and, learn. And if you already know this stuff, and kind of reaffirm what you already know in your heart. And just reaffirm it, that you're not alone. We are all in this together. And yeah, I am a work in progress. And it does take one day at a time to achieve our goals. And I love making this podcast. And just share it with your friends, share it with your family. Share it with people that you feel would benefit. Because I never thought in my life where I'd be running a podcast talking about the law of attraction, because I used to think it was crazy. But until I started experimenting with it and testing it and applying it to my life and what works and what doesn't work, it's amazing what the universe can open, what doors will open for you. I do want you to know that I do love each and every one of you. I might not know you personally, but if we could just have positive energy and just release into the world and just bring so much more happiness to this world, it will be so much better. And that you are important. We are all in this together. We're a collective creator of our universe and of our world and of our reality. Let's make it happy. Let's make it the best one. And just enjoy life. So stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you very much for listening and putting up with this not so positive, I guess, vibes that I'm putting out today. But this is it's getting somewhere. It's going to get really interesting. So stay tuned for the next episodes. I do appreciate you. I love you. Everybody have a great day.